Hello, everybody. It is Mischievous Heathen here again with another heretical interview. This time, the lovely and talented Kamil Gregor. How you doing, Kamil?
Hi, Nick. How are you?
Didn't expect that, did you?
No, not at all. That's not usually what happens when I enter a room.
Well, I'm glad you came on. It's kind of an interesting reason why we actually sort of hooked up here tonight. I had done a couple of interviews with some people that have had some interactions with Trey, and
Yeah.
you left quite a humorous post on one of my videos. Do you remember what you said?
What do you mean exactly?
I think in your post you said something like, "How dare you not?
Oh yeah, yeah.
How
Oh,
dare
that's
you not
right.
interview me?" or something along those lines, which I thought was pretty funny because you went a few rounds with Trey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did
Yeah.
you get anywhere?
Well, it depends, right? Like I haven't really changed his position, but that's hardly surprising. But I really enjoyed it. Actually, I like at some point I'd like to do a podcast with Trey, talking about politics.
Oh wow,
Yeah, that would be
you are
awesome. Or not necessarily Trey personally. I've got this idea of getting like a really like an evangelical basically that's really out there, sitting down and just talking for an hour about everyday stuff like politics, social issues, and stuff like that. I think that would be really good because I mean there's a lot of interesting content in the Great Debate community, but the problem is that it's always just one side, right? So it's either an atheist podcast or it's a religious podcast, and yeah, that would really shake things up, I think. But in order to make that interesting, you would really need to find someone that's like has a very different worldview from yours, right? And yeah, why not Trey? I mean, he's got if you kind of don't pay attention to that much to what he's saying, I think he's gotten like a voice that's like I mean you can listen to, right? I can imagine him doing a career in radio, for example.
the problem with Trey isn't the way he speaks or his cadence or his voice or anything. It's his attitude, and
Hmm.
it would
Yeah.
be your show would sound awesome. Uh, However, you would have to have someone with a similar uh, demeanor as you, or even if it's a little different, but someone you can bounce ideas off of back and forth, and have a conversation with. And Trey has a tendency to just, if you don't agree with him, then you're wrong, and that's that, And he just,
Yeah, that's
maybe not the
yeah,
best
that's
person to do it with, but
yeah.
I get what.
Unfortunately, the people that would be like able to do that or willing to do that are not really the people that like I'd like to do it with, right? Because
Right.
I think that the more extreme you get with these people on their like, just not only religious view but with their worldview in general, the more often they have these kind of personalities, right? I'm sure it wouldn't be a problem to find like a more moderate Christian that would be more like open to it and actually like intellectually able to have a discussion with someone with very different like political and social views. But those people wouldn't be that interesting because they're not just that crazy.
Right. There has to be just the right amount of crazy to make it
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the more crazy it gets, the better, right?
you get views. That's, I mean, there's a reason why everybody like flocks to G-Man videos because he's crazy and
Yeah,
he's a moron. So
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
stuff just breeds conflict, and that breeds interest, right? So
Yeah, there's another, like, yeah, another thing is that you can't do these kind of things with people like G-Man or Trey because they're just like functionally illiterate, so you couldn't even have like a discussion with them, right? I'm not sure like how Trey is actually like in this, but at least he doesn't like sound downright moronic, right?
right.
Um, yeah.
The things he says are moronic, but he doesn't necessarily sound moronic. But
Yeah.
so you were sort of in and out of the G plus thing for a while, and I don't know you that well, right? So, do you mind saying how old a guy you are? Because I'm
Yeah,
like
I'm
30.
30.
Okay, so okay, cool. Okay, so
Yeah.
you've had some years under your belt there, and
Yeah, yeah. I've been following this kind of the quote unquote great debate since I would say 2008, so fairly early. I
oh, okay.
remember, yeah, I
So
remember
you
watching people when YouTube was like a really small thing, right? So that most of them probably are not around. Like I still watch, The Amazing Atheist, Down the Food, these kind of people. But I haven't been really active. Don't know why really. Probably because I have life.
That's something that we talked about before the show too. I would love to put forth like a bit of a production value into what I do, but it takes time and it takes money,
Yeah.
and I got shit to do basically, and so I can't. It's a difficult. It's an investment, And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
are you are you involved? Like, did you go to college for philosophy or anything like that, or because you seem pretty well
No.
versed, or science, or you? I don't know if you're the philosophy guy or the biology guy, or which guy were you? You did something with Trey where you were trying to break stuff. You had an infographic and a fucking chart and all this stuff, and you were like, look, and you were spelling it out for him, and it was just bouncing off his fucking forehead like this. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. I thought it would, because here's the thing, right? Like people usually write him off because they don't get like what he's saying, and when they realize that he's using that kind of like he's got his own vocabulary, right?
Right.
They just like stop trying, because like why would you try to talk to someone that's just using words differently, right? But I find this like intriguing, so I really paid attention and tried to get into his mindset as much as possible, because even though he uses a lot of these words in his own way and he makes some mistakes along the way, I think it's still possible to argue against it even using his own language, basically. So I became the Trey whisperer and try to kind of adapt this kind of lingo. So I thought it would be neat to try to show some of these things to him using some kind of visuals, right? Because what he does really well is like changing subjects, throwing out like nonsensical sentences and stuff like that. But I think you can have much more productive discussion if you try to pin him down using some kind of visual that you can actually point to and say, like, it's either this or that. Like these are the only two options, right? And you can
You're like, duh, this or this.
Yeah, or actually show him that there's more options than what he's saying, right?
Right.
Like what one of his most basic thing, like kind of drawing this distinction between contingency and self-existency is actually a false dichotomy, right? Floyd, I think, pointed that out really well, that you could have a thing that's wasn't caused by anything else, but that still acted on by something else after it begins to exist, right? So like you could have people who are contingent on the existence of God, supposedly interacting with him and changing him. That's not a contradiction, but apparently it is, because if you're self-existing, you can't change. That's what Trey always says. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to my background, I actually finished my PhD this January. I've got a PhD in political science. But I taught myself statistics and coding during my PhD. So I'm a corporate bitch. I'm with a marketing research agency, and I'm basically in charge of maintaining a statistical model that kind of estimates like revenue and these kind of things in IT, actually.
So you're technically Dr. Kamil, right?
Yeah, technically.
This is the second doctor that I've talked to.
Awesome.
Mark Connolly, which I did an interview with just recently. He also has a PhD, and I asked him, can I call you Dr. Mark? And he's just like, yeah, if you want to,
Well, then I have to insist.
Yeah, I'll call you Doc all day. I'd be very pleased with myself if I had a PhD, which I obviously don't. But so I was kind of curious, because you seem to be able to break down your points, like I said, in with charts or graphics or tips. Like you knew how to simplify it to where it was understandable, and which is a good thing. So I thought you had some sort of scientific, like science, not like political science, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get that. Well, I even in social sciences, you can get people that are like very like technical, good at math and these kind of things, right? Like, I mean, if you open a journal of economics, for example, there's probably more stuff written in Greek in like math equations than there is just normal language, right? And I've always been like within political science, I always try to be very like kind of emulate the natural sciences as much as possible, which involves like a lot of statistics and these kind of things. There are now political scientists that actually scan people's brains. That's really cool.
Really?
To try to figure out how people like think about politics, what kind of roles emotions play, for example. So you could get on the same level almost, even in social sciences in some cases. At other times, social sciences can be crap, right? But not always. I think, sometimes people draw this false dichotomy between, the actual science, which is like physics and stuff, and these kind of, like disciplines where you just talk and that's I think
just
it's
figured. Oh, I thought political science was political. I'm not sure how it is where you were educated, but I guess I don't say assumed, but because science is in the name, I figured there was it deferred to more of the methodology by which you gain the information versus like when someone says the word science, they don't think of necessarily political science first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, I got something right. It's always pleasing when a doctor agrees with me. So, but there was something else that you wanted to talk about, which is actually the topic. It's the title actually of my video. I'm not sure if you saw the title.
What's the title?
It says Heretical Interview, which is always the name of the thing. Kamil Gregor, religion from wherever the heck Kamil is from.
Yeah, you got the name of the country exactly right, actually. most people don't know that, but you do.
Yeah. So where tell us about where you're. I mean, if you're not comfortable with it, of course, but
no, it's okay. No problem talking about it.
You're obviously in Europe. I'm obviously in America.
Yep.
But what parts of Europe?
So it would be Czech Republic. It's a Central Europe. It used to be Czechoslovakia until '93. So it's a country eastern of Germany. I don't know if you know anything about it. The capital is Prague.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know the capital was Prague.
Yeah.
That was the extent. Here's what I know about the Czech Republic. There is the capital's Prague, and there are a lot of pornos with Czechoslovakia. I don't know if you've seen that.
That's true. I mean, it's difficult to judge this from outside with these like optimizations of like Google searches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see a lot of Czech porn, but I always assume that because I'm in the country, right? So that's what I'm being offered.
No, it has Czech in the name. Is what I'm saying. It literally has Czech in the name, like it's a series of videos and stuff. But
is there anything typical about it?
Well, the whole premise is that this guy, I guess, is walking around and he finds like these girls on the street or like in the park or in a store, and he approaches them and he talks to them for a second. He's like, "Hey, do you want to come sit down?" or blah, blah, blah. But eventually he takes them to a place that's more private and he offers them money to like show them her breasts or whatever. And then he goes, "Well, if I give you 500 more or however much more, will you do this?" And then she's like, "Well, no, it's embarrassing." And then he offers her 500 more, and then they eventually have sex somewhere in a public place.
Oh yeah, that's what happens here all the time. Actually, that's how we greet each other. Long tradition.
Well, I gotta get a flight out there because it's the weirdest thing, and I don't know. I'm not familiar with the Czech language. I just go, man, it sounds like possibly could be Czech, but yes, I don't know where they're filming this stuff or whatever, but it's pretty funny. It's just like
I can imagine a lot of that could actually be Russian as well.
So I bet you didn't think you were going to talk about internet porn when you came on this morning for you.
Not this early into the hangout, actually.
We saved that for the second half of porn talk. But so now it makes sense, the title, right? Religion from wherever the heck you're from, because I had no idea. But you had made mention to me that things where you're from are very different as far as how religion is looked at, or atheism is looked at. Or can you be a little more precise and tell us a little more about what you meant or how it is different?
Oh yeah, I mean it's one of the it's a country, probably the country that was measured as being the most kind of non-religious, right? I actually look at some numbers before we start talking. With measuring religiosity, usually through polls or census and these kind of things, it's a bit tricky because it's really like a question dependent kind of thing, right? I mean, if you measure, let's say, gender, you could use like different definitions and different categories and stuff like that, but the results are really robust against that, so you wouldn't get like wildly different numbers, right? But with religiosity, it actually depends really a lot about on like how you exactly phrase the question, right? But there's, for example, a Eurobarometer poll, which is very kind of it's the official polling agency of the EU, and it's got consistent numbers across Europe. And it turns out that Czech Republic is actually on the top when it comes to non-religiosity. So only 16% of people say like this. Wow. I believe there is a God, right? So there be 60%.
Wow.
The EU average is 51. So we are like way below even countries like Sweden, the UK, that are, I guess, like more well known for being non-religious. Then the other category is, which is really interesting. I believe there is some sort of spirits or life force. So that would be like religious but non-theistic, let's say, where we have 44%. And then the rest of our people that say, I don't believe there's any sort of spirit, God, or life force. So yeah, 16%. There you go. 16% of theists. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, no kidding, man. You got beautiful women and a bunch of atheists.
Yeah.
You're living the dream, buddy.
Yeah. Also, like a very good thing is if you look at the map of what would be your typical alcoholic beverage, right? So beer for Germany, I don't know, wine for Italy, spirits for Russia. We're exactly in the overlap of these three categories, so you can actually get a very good brands of all three. So there you go. And
nice.
Beer, which is usually what people associate Czech Republic with, because we're also the country with the highest beer consumption per capita. It's cheaper than water in most places. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're selling me here on my retirement.
I also work for the official tourism board.
Do you get a commission for this, or like what's going on? I always imagined myself retiring. I've always wanted to retire in like Sweden or the Netherlands or Copenhagen or something, Denmark, somewhere.
These places are expensive as fuck. I mean, Czech Republic, we are. If I had to summarize the country in like one sentence, we are like what's kind of. What would be a good way to describe it is it's a nice mix between like Western and Eastern European stereotypes, right? So if you imagine like Russians, like how they are or your perception of it, and then you imagine Germans. Yeah, we would be somewhere in the middle between these two in terms of like cultural and social stereotypes, right? Also, we're like very open, obviously, on social issues, which I think it goes hand to hand with a lack of religiosity. So in terms of like, I don't know, tolerance of sexual minorities and these kind of things. That's also like really progressive. But also the country is extremely cheap still. With everything, like the costs of living, taxes are much lower than they would be in Sweden, for example. So
yes.
One of the reasons why I wanted to have that discussion is because given the extremely low numbers of theists basically in the country, you don't really see people talking about these things in the great debate community that much. Because I would think that, you know, people living in a country where almost everyone is religious still would be interested in like figuring out how does like society like that look like, right? But not really. I guess it could probably be because of people in the US don't know Europe that much. I don't know.
You can say it. You can say Americans are dumb. I know what you
Okay.
mean. I know
Yeah.
what you mean, Kamil.
Well, I mean, I don't know that much about the
Here's
US, right?
let me tell you a little something about Americans. That maybe you already know this, maybe you don't. But Americans are very what I would describe as egocentric,
Mm-hmm.
and so they don't. If it's not in their own country, generally they don't care or don't care as much, right? Okay, fine, you can go with that, whatever. But even within our own country, like if it's across from West Coast to East Coast, or maybe in the Midwest, they don't care as much. You know what I mean? They're very much like I care my immediate community. You know, it's very sort of selfish.
Is it the case for the people in the great debate community, like for atheists? Because I can imagine that still the people that we meet here are not really representative of the overall population, right? Like they get to, at least that's my perception, they get to be a bit more like educated, maybe, probably a bit more progressive on social issues than would be the average, right?
Well, I would say from my perspective, and this is maybe just because I'm biased, but there are a lot of people on the sort of atheist side that are very educated, right? I mean, Ozzy's a good example. You know,
Oh yeah. Well, he's not from the US though.
oh, he's Canadian, right?
Uh-huh.
We'll take North America. We'll take North America. No, I didn't know he was Canadian. Oh, fuck that guy. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. I forgot he was Canadian. No wonder he's so polite.
Hoktai is also Canadian. Concordance
is he really?
Canadian. Yeah, I think the smartest people actually in the community are
No
all
shit.
Canadians.
Yeah, well, yeah. They got a bunch of smart guys, but they gave us Justin Bieber, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that pushes the average way.
Yeah. they got a lot of smart guys, but we've got Celine Dion and Justin Bieber, so that balances out cosmically.
Also, they have like 5 people up there, right? So that'd be Ozzy, Hoktai, Justin Bieber, and that's about it.
The funny part is, when it comes to people, you know, like True Empiricism or G-Man or, you know, and Pillbox or any of these people that are, or, you know, Brett Keane, all these guys that are like really, really crazy, they don't act like that at all. Close. I've never met anyone act that crazy. And if they do act that crazy, like the people that protest everything or whatever, or jumping up and down and yelling, then they're normally given like a wide berth. You know, people just ignore them. They, you know, anybody that shows generally an excess of religiosity in public is generally more scorned by believers and non-believers, right? Because your average person in America just tries to get through their day. I live. Do you ever heard of Ray Comfort?
Oh yeah, sure.
I was telling Mark this. I can go every weekend and have go to the beach where he open air preaches with Living Waters Ministry. I can see him almost every weekend if I chose to. I could literally drive over there. It takes 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes at the most. And when, you know, when they try to draw a crowd and they, you know, evolution's a fairy tale, come challenge me, you know, and it's very like, you know, verbose, and they're trying to like, you know, get attention. They're generally, they may draw a crowd from time to time, you know, anywhere between no people to like 30 people, 40 people, depending on how busy it is. But for the most part, they're just ignored. And for the most part, they're scorned. But if you ask those same people that ignore them or just, you know, give them scorn, do they believe in a God? Most of them will say yes. And it's this weird thing where they go, well, I believe in God, I'm a Christian, but I'm not that kind of Christian. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm not.
Interesting.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people differentiate themselves. It's along the lines of how America is doing the political correct thing, where, you know, it's everyone is like, it's cool to believe what you want, but don't push your beliefs on me, pal. Which is all fine, all fair and good. But it's a very interesting thing. I just want to go, well, that guy believes in the same thing you believe in. He's just, I mean, he may be approaching the public differently with it, but it's still the same shit. You know what I mean? But that's how people react to it in a lot of ways. Now you get them all in a room together. These same people may do Bible studies. These same people may go to church. But for the most part, most people live identically. They have premarital sex, they do drugs, they drink. That
Yeah. I guess it would be kind of similar here. Although I have to say, I've only seen like a street preacher maybe once ever here. So
and how did he do? How does he fare?
I don't know. I mean, I can imagine like if someone like Ray Comfort, for example, did something like that here, people would just think he's like crazy, right? Like just because people are not like openly religious here at all. It's common, like it's probably much more often perceived or associated with like mental illness than it probably is in the US, right? Like people just think like you're like, I mean, they would be fine with you doing that, but they wouldn't take you seriously at all. I think the most openly religious people here are members of the Hare Krishna community, right? It's just because they are like, that's their thing, like to go out and sell like cookies and sing like weird music and stuff like that. But like Christians, no way. That's also like a cultural thing, because the biggest denomination here is the Catholic Church, or like Catholics, right? And Protestants are really like a minority, and also here, like Protestants are actually much more liberal than Catholics, right? So you wouldn't even know. While I guess in the US it's the other way around. So I guess you wouldn't even know that someone is like a Catholic priest or like a pastor or something like that, because they're just like normal people, right? Like there are Protestant churches that support gay marriage and these kind of things.
Oh, that's really progressive.
The Catholic Church at this point is now like an old people's club. They're not very. They don't have this kind of televangelist vibe. It's just like a bunch of people that meet in old buildings on Sunday and talk about stuff.
It's the other way here. Whenever I go to a new job, or when I go, I just started this job in June, and I know that there's at least one Christian there who I had butted heads with already. But all right, dog. This is my dog, by the way. They come this small in America. I'm not sure if they come that small in Europe. But you don't just come out and say, hey, I mean, it shouldn't come up, or relatively doesn't come up at work. But especially with the election that just happened here, religion comes up quite a bit. And even when you're at a social function or a wedding, I had to go to a baptism. I don't say grace when everyone says grace. I just kind of, I'm not sure if anyone does it where you are, but basically everyone.
I've never been to a baptism.
No, but I mean,
don't do that.
The saving grace thing, everyone joins hands and they close their eyes and someone says
no,
prayer.
Nothing like that. Nothing like that.
And so I'm the only guy. I'm sitting there at the table like this, right? And have my, you can't see my hands, right? But you're holding hands to people next to you, and everyone's like lowering their head, and saying, and they go amen, and then you start to eat, right? Like you're blessing the food or saying thanks for the food, and I'm the only guy sitting there like this, like just looking around, like, are we gonna eat yet? Or like but at the same time, if you don't do it, you look like an asshole. You know what I mean? Like they go, hey, what's wrong with that guy? He's not saying grace, or he's not showing respect. And it's hard. It's to convince them in a sense that you're not disrespecting them, but it would be more disrespectful for me to lie like I'm praying, would it not? And then so at work, people look at you differently, when they find out you're an atheist. And so there's always like this weird kind of period where they go, yeah, that's cool. Everybody has their own thing, and then they kind of get into that politically correct mode where, that kind of thing, which is fine. I don't care what, I just go, hey man, I don't care what you guys believe in. Honestly, I just here to work. But if you're gonna like try to argue with me about something, then that's a different story,
Yeah, I think here it could be the other way around, where like, for example, if someone in my office like just dropped something about Jesus or something like that, like showed overtly that he's like religious, I think that people would be weirded out just because it's like so uncommon. Or even like why do you have the need to mention that? And also what's interesting, like now with even before Trump, with things like Brexit and stuff, we have a resurgence of these. It's a weird group of people. You can't really say they are like far right because they have like completely different positions on some of the issues, but they are basically like an equivalent of Trump supporters, right? They haven't really had a lot of political success because they are usually in political parties that are already kind of established. Like they haven't had their own like candidate or a party yet, but here they are actually like more anti-religious than most people because they're anti-Islam and they just trade off like all religions, right? So if you have discussions with them and Christianity comes up, they would say, oh, it's just like the same bullshit, basically, right? They would always bring up, Inquisition and the Crusades and these kind of things, right? So that's interesting.
Yeah, there's a weird alt-right movement here in America.
Yeah. We have that as well, but it's not religious. They don't, or they don't have. It's like a bunch of atheists, just like everyone else, right?
No,
So
ours are fueled by a bunch of neo-Nazis and white supremacists in America.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, see the conversation, and this may be different also. Where I came up at my place of work was Trump was considering putting this guy named Ben Carson as the head of education or the secretary of education or whatever the title's called, right?
Yep.
And he was a neurosurgeon, and he's like a devout evangelical Christian, I believe.
And he's a younger
creationist, yes. Yeah. And we were talking about it, and I said, hey, I don't care if the guy's religious if he can do the job, but I do have a big problem with somebody that's going to be that the Secretary of Education and believe the Earth is 6,000 years old. That fucking blows my mind, And I totally offended the girl that that sits next to me because she's a believer, right? Even though she says she was married, but she's divorced. She's got a bunch of kids and the whole thing, and for her, I think religion is something that she has to have to for her life to make sense. She's like, I go through all this craziness in my life. I'm stressed out constantly. Without that hope of something else, like this is all compiling to a greater meaning. I think she would lose her mind. But in America, I had a bit of a tangent there. But in America, for me, I don't feel comfortable with the leaders of with the leaders of my country that believe the Earth is 6,000 years old. It's just it
well,
scares
obviously,
me.
we obviously have nothing like that. I think there's like one guy in the country, like literally one guy. Like if you search for creationism on Czech internet, there's just like one guy that has like a blog post about it or something like that, right? Or like some kind of obscure media outlet. So yeah, obviously there's nothing like that. So I guess most people would like never seen even anything like that, right? So that they would never think that literally, like if you say here that there are people who think that the Earth is like 6,000 years old, they would put that on the same level as the flat earthers, for example. While in the US, like I guess flat earthers would be even lower on this kind of intellectual stack, right?
The funny part about my go ahead.
No, I mean, it's actually like fundamentally the same thing, right? It's the same level of irrationality.
I was going to say, as a side note, that same my coworker who is a Christian, supposedly, when I brought up the Flat Earth Society, everybody scoffed at it, including her.
Mhm.
And she actually said, "Oh, that's fucking ridiculous." And I'm just like, but you have stated that you believe that Adam and Eve is a true story, like literally, and the Earth is young. And I'm like, do you not see the irony here? But she's one of those people that, like, when she feels that she is threatened, she just asserts things as fact repeatedly, and it's like, we'll talk about something, whether it's evolution or abiogenesis, Big Bang, whatever, and her response is always, well, no, God creates everything. God just creates. And like, that's her mentality. That's how she deals. That's how she rationalizes everything. Oh no, you're wrong. God creates everything.
Yeah,
but you can't ever question her how.
Yeah, what makes the difference is like if Genesis, I don't know, 1:25, whatever, said like explicitly, oh yeah, by the way, the Earth is flat. Yeah, that would probably equalize things, right? Because now you need to be a bit creative with interpreting the Bible to get the flat Earth, like to have that kind of position. While with evolution, although I don't know, like I don't really see the argument for kind of the theological argument, because I like when they usually base this anti-evolution stuff on the verse which says that animals and whatever give birth after their kind or something like that, which technically isn't even in conflict with evolution, because every organism's ancestors are actually not only member of their own kind, quote unquote, but even their own species, right? Like it never happens that, I don't know, a duck gives birth to something else.
Yeah, there are people out there that think that evolution is like a dolphin gives birth to a giraffe or some wacky shit, and it's like, or a dolphin will want to give birth to a giraffe with wings or something wacky, or it just. And it just bothers me that people are that.
While in actuality, you have to catch an animal into a Pokeball, and then it can evolve.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's a big difference. I mean, how is education where you're at as far as science goes?
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic, because actually in high school, we are technically, I mean, just before we start talking about that, so I'm 30, right? So this would be, I don't know, 25 to 15 years old information. So I don't know how it is now. I just recently came across a textbook for history, and it's interesting because the way how they talk about the origins of Christianity, for example. So I mean, they explicitly say, for example, that Jesus was a historical person, and that there is no there's a consensus, or that there's no it's not disputed. While I think it's not actually the case, right? Like you have mythicists in the historical community of historians that publish research and these kind of things. But in biology specifically, so we were technically taught both evolution and creationism, but it was just I mean, it's not in the curricula or anything. And I'm sure the biology teacher was an atheist, just like everyone else, right? But he was like at the beginning of the first class in high school, so that would be I would be like 15 or something like that. He would say, well, there are people who think that life was created by God or something like that. I remember he even threw out the airplane or tornado going through a junkyard, forming an airplane, something like that. But it was a joke. Like he made that argument, and we just laughed at it, right? Because everyone obviously realized it's not an equivalent to what biologists propose, right? It's not fundamentally the same set of principles. And after 10 minutes, we moved on, and we spent 4 years talking about evolution, right? Or actual science. So technically, it was there. So that's biology or sciences. And in like social sciences or like civics or anything, yeah, we would obviously learn about like every religion or like every major religion, but we would just like approach it equally, right? So I guess Christianity would go first, but the kind of things that you go through, like the history, the teachings, the religious practices, these kind of things, yeah, that we just like, yeah, Christianity 1 week, then Islam, then Buddhism, whatever, you know. And I mean, if you learn about like history, specifically European history, that's just full of like holy wars and religious extremisms and these kind of things. We even like back then, like now the biggest church are Catholics. They are about 10% of the population. The second largest denomination is non-denominated, actually, with 6%, and Protestantism is actually less than 1%. But like historically, there was a lot of like religious wars going on between Catholics and Protestants. Actually, I don't know where all the Protestants went. Then they probably became atheists at a much faster rate. Anyway, so yeah, so I mean, if you learn about history of like Central Europe or Europe in general, it's not very difficult for you to come to the conclusion that the whole like religion thing is just bullshit based on like, it's like, if you know the Red Dwarf, the British TV show.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah, that's a really
everything.
funny line or funny kind of situation. I guess that's pretty well known, where there's a holy war between people who want like green heads and blue heads or something like that, right? And then turns out that the founder of the religion wanted them to be red or something like that, right? So both factions actually got it wrong. And also, that's one thing that's really interesting about education that I went through. So in elementary school, you would go through these like courses about like drugs, alcoholism, and these kinds of things, like just like socially like pathological things. And they would always tell you like, you know, these are the drugs, don't do them. This is what it does to people. You know, just like education about these kind of things. And I remember we specifically had a class on sects, like religious sects, where they would, I guess they wouldn't mention anyone like by name. Like they wouldn't say, yeah, Scientology is bullshit, so don't fall into it. But they would have a trainer who would come in and he would explain like how like religious cults work. Like that they have like a leader and they try to isolate you from your family and these kind of things, right? And yeah, when you're like, I don't know, 15 listening to it, you can really see that actually everything that he's talking about is applicable to just mainstream religion. It's just like a matter of degree, right? Like if you go to a Catholic church, they don't have like a cult leader, but they have an authority figure, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's the educational stuff, I guess.
Authority figure is definitely required for religion. See, here it's weird because we were doing so well under Obama, right? In the sense that we were getting on the progressive track. We were behind Europe, and I have this understanding of, this is just my perception, but I always feel that Europe is always, as far as progressive issues, fashion, stuff like that, they're always like 5 years at least ahead of America. Right? When I started carry, I don't know if do you guys where you're at carry man bags, like those shoulder bags or anything for business or anything or school or?
I'm not sure that I know what it is. Let me Google it.
I got one right here. So, does anybody carry like a bag? Like,
oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. So, in America, unless you're someplace metropolitan or around people that don't like to carry that, they go, "Oh, look at that guy. He's a homo. He carries a man bag. That's a man purse." And I was like, and my response generally is, "You goddamn right, it's a man purse. I carry my shit in it, you know."
Yeah.
But so, and the reason I bring that up is because the education thing here, it's weird because there's always gonna be, as it seems, a group of intelligent design proponents that always want to cram that in the butt crack of our education system in one form or another. And it has a lot more traction in the South, right, in the Bible Belt here in America. And of course, in California, New York, and all that, it doesn't. And if they don't teach, intelligent design directly, they want to at least crowbar some preface in the beginning of the book that says, well, evolution, it hasn't been proven, and this and that. And as soon as I hear, the evolutionary theory has never been proven, I already start to get irritated at the how they're saying it. You know what I mean? Like, what do you like? What it just starts to irritate me already. But and they'll even go as far as putting in a chapter where not a chapter, but sort of like a page or two where it says like, alternatively, there are some that believe that this is how everything came to be, or all the life on the planet currently came to be, and it gets into a bit of a blurb about whatever, the Christian creation story.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with that here, but I think you guys can't really afford to have that in the educational system in the US, because if you give these people some leeway, that would probably fuck things up really bad, right? Because like here, you can technically give teachers liberty to teach whatever they want, and they will just always teach evolution, because there are no creationists here, definitely not like among teachers, so like nobody would do that, right?
Can I just make one quick observation, Kamil?
Yeah.
I've seen you in several videos, and I've never seen you. I've never heard you curse, and you dropped the F-bomb twice in this conversation, and I would like to say that I'm proud of that.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Because you're so proper, and when you speak, and like.
That could be because the English isn't my first language, right? So I just think I have to think more carefully about what I want to say. So I guess
Gotcha.
when you curse, it's kind of like more like a natural way how you speak.
Well, I've been trying to make Floyd curse forever. The few times he came on our show, and he's so like I mean, he's a cool guy. Floyd, if you watch his video, I think you're a cool dude. But he's so serious. Awesome. He's so serious. One time I made him smirk, and I was like, I saw you. You smiled a little bit, I was like, I could just make him smile.
He's got a scoffing laugh.
Yeah, I got this great little clip of him. I forgot what he was talking about. He was talking about how men used to treat women, during that Abrahamic time or something like that. And he said, or I forgot what it was. Honestly, I forgot what it was, but he said something. He was speaking as if he was one of the people at the time, right? And he says something to the effect of, "Hey, I'm a man. I have to come," or something along those lines. And so I just took that clip and I just posted that on YouTube. It's just the greatest clip ever, because I never thought I would hear him say those words.
Did he get a southern accent, but automatically? That's what some people do. Like when they want to like say something, like when they like impersonate a stupid person, they automatically go to the southern accent.
No, yeah, I do that sometimes. I do it at work when everybody at my work voted for Trump but me. And maybe one other person. I work in an industry where it tends to be very Republican. It's predominantly Caucasians, and depending on where you are, in the food chain, there's varying degrees of racism. So, where I'm at is the not racist part, but racist enough, in a sense, like nobody there dislikes. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know that for sure, but nobody there is outwardly racist, right? I've been in workplaces where I remember the secretary was in my office and she dropped the N-word right my first week there in my office, and I was all, whoa, what's going on here, And she made it very clear that she didn't like African Americans, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to last here very long. I'm not even African American, but she thought I was going to, she would follow me around the office because she thought I was going to steal stuff. And whenever I went to the supply closet to go get a pens, or like I'm not sure about your work, but there's always a closet that has like pens and notepads and staplers and stuff, right? Whenever I needed something like my pen ran out of ink or something, and I'd go in there, she would always come in the room and go, "Oh, well, do you need something? Do you need something?" And her desk is like way over here, but she can see me coming down the hall. And she did that for about 3 months, and she finally stopped. But yeah, anyway, my industry could be like that. And everyone voted for Trump, so just the mindset is completely different, and they get upset with me because whenever I try to sound dumb, I put on this heavy Southern accent, like this ridiculous, like, kind of woo doggy, like that, or I just make like, but they I hate to say it, but a lot of times they bring it upon themselves because they don't do things that are necessarily out of their typical American culture. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you don't. They almost make themselves sound extra hillbilly-ish, even though they're not. Because they feel like that's the American thing to do.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Like I'm the weird guy in there because I don't ride dirt bikes. I don't collect guns. Everyone in there is a big gun owner. They have multiple guns, assault rifles, body armor, and because it's like America, vote for Trump, America, guns, and
that's another thing that we don't have. Like there aren't like 0 guns. I think I've never seen probably a gun on a civilian ever here.
There's places here in America, in Nevada, where you can there's an open carry law, like they can have it in your holster under your arm. And that's another thing. I got into this argument with someone at work, or multiple people at work, about big game hunting, right? And there was a guy that owns this chain of restaurants right here, and he big game hunts, right? Leopards, lions, elephants, that kind of thing. And I said I don't understand the psychology behind wanting to fly across the world and kill an animal. Right? I don't get it. Like I can't relate to it in any way. I don't know why you'd even want to do it, right? But as far as the guns go, they were like, well, why do you need an assault rifle to kill things? Like when you go hunting, because they go, oh, hunting, and I'm like, but do you need an AR-15 assault rifle to go hunting and kill a deer? And they're like, well, no, you don't do that. You take that out to the desert and shoot. Okay, fine, whatever. But their arguments are all horrible.
Yeah.
They're the equivalent of the worst argument for God you heard. It's always like, well, if you take our guns away, only the criminals will have guns. And that kind of stuff. And it's like, what if somebody breaks into your house? Okay. Then they would say, well, they would go, have you ever had a home invasion where someone just bulldoze, like a group of people just break through the door and just rob you? And I'm just like, well, no. Well, that's when
Actually, I mean, even criminals don't have guns here, because turns out if you're caught in a robbery and you have a gun, you tend to get much higher sentence, right? I think that criminals arm themselves in countries where civilians are armed, right? If the civilian population isn't armed, why would you have a gun? It's just makes you more likely to get into trouble if things go down, right? I mean, this idea that when you disarmed normal people, criminals would be the only people around with guns, I think it's just false, because there are countries that have almost no guns at all. I mean, we are not being ruled by a mafia mob. I mean, there have been some countries and time periods where that was the case, Italy and stuff like that. But that had just completely different reasons. There was a cultural thing, right?
They're very upset that they have to. There's a new law or whatever that passed that they have to do an additional background check to buy ammunition. They were upset at that, and you can't take a gun. Like, let's say your grandfather was in World War I or not World War II, and he has his rifle, his M1 or whatever. He can't gift that to one of his sons as an inheritance because it's a gun, and you just kill people with it. And just stuff like that. There's all these little laws here and there. But I try to explain this to them, and they just don't want to hear it because they're too busy like, America, land of the free, don't and just like, okay, all right, I must. All right,
It was interesting. I recently found out that we can actually it's not very difficult for us to get guns. Like it's not like there's like crazy amounts of restriction or anything like that. You just don't do that.
Yeah. It's the desire to have a gun. Like, what is? I never understood that. And that was the point I was trying to bring up with that guy that was big game hunting. I was like, I don't understand the desire to have a gun. Like, and then if you have a gun, let's say you have a handgun in the house for whatever reason. Let's say you live in a bad neighborhood and you feel you have to have a gun. Do you have to have 6 handguns? Do you have to have 6 handguns? A rifle and an AR-15 machine gun? Like, I mean, I don't understand. Like, what is the And I guess they go out to the desert, we're over here, and they shoot stuff. But I'm just like, all right, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I'll play Call of Duty or something if I really want to. You know what I mean? Like, I can't relate to what joy they get out of it. I've never done it, so maybe I'll really like it. But even if I did, I can't see myself going, you know what? Let me go buy that AR-15 assault rifle, because that's the big thing now. That particular rifle, I've learned, is very popular because it's easily modifiable, and you can't buy the whole gun anymore, right? You can only buy the bottom half. You can buy the bottom half like in parts or completely built. They're called lowers. And then all you have to do is buy the components for the top half, and then you can build your AR-15. Because it's going to be illegal to do that after a while.
Well, I mean, eventually people are just going to 3D print their guns at home, so that's going to be fun.
You should see my coworkers. No one's 3D printing anything. None of my coworkers
I think we're going to get there eventually. Yeah, but I mean, we have no guns, but we have a fuck ton of racist people. Especially recently. Like, I think in like last, I don't know, three years, something like that, like people that were always racist now just like feel more comfortable saying that out loud, right? Because I think once you break some kind of psychological barrier where it's no longer taboo, people just like now they say whatever, right? And I guess in like social media, you can kind of, there is this confirmation bias where if someone says something overtly racist, like very racist, you usually get to see that because people share that stuff around, right? So it's really difficult to say how it is with general population. But yeah, recently I was really weird. And the weird thing is that apart from being one of the most like atheistic countries, we are also one of the most like ethnically and racially homogeneous countries. So like 99% of the population is white, and like 95% is like Czech, right? So they identify as members of the same nation, right? So we have only very few foreigners like that would actually live here, as opposed to tourists and foreign students, right? And also, yeah, one of the biggest, definitely the biggest non-white minority are Vietnamese, actually. And yeah, I don't really know how they got here. I guess it's because Czechoslovakia used to have ties with Vietnam because they were both communist countries. So maybe that's because of that, I guess. But yeah, there's quite a few Vietnamese people, and they actually integrate into society so well. It's almost creepy. Yeah, and I mean, this minority only formed in 1990s. So it was actually interesting for me to see, like during my lifetime, how they progressed, right? So because I remember when I was a kid, they were like really poor, and they only had like these like shops where they sold illegal, like, or not illegal, but this like fake clothing and these kind of things. And now they're like in universities and in politics and stuff like that. Yeah, it's really weird.
Is it really jarring to see a Vietnamese person speak Czech?
What do you mean?
Because okay, I'll say in America, right? Because we're so egocentric, right? It's always in America. The mindset is there's America and everywhere else, right? It's very us and them, wherever they're at. So for a lot of times, let's say we see an African American person or an Asian person, Vietnamese, Chinese, whatever, and let's say we see them on TV or in person, and they have like an English accent. The part of us, our brains like, whoa, oh, okay, yeah, they're from, they're from Europe, right? And then we go on about their day. But there's like that second and a half in our brain where we're like, this doesn't make any sense, does not compute, and then we snap out of it.
No, nothing like that. Actually, the really funny thing is that the the leader of one of the most like right-wing parties that like a party that would be very like nationalistic, he's actually Japanese by descent. So it's really weird that you have this guy, and he's very like Czech patriotic, right? He was, for example, elected in like a very like a rural area where you get the sort of stereotypes that you get with the Bible Belt in the US, right? So people would be like very patriotic. They would have like problems with alcoholism and these kind of things. So I guess that's the stereotype.
You got your own Trump.
Yeah, but he's like Vietnamese, right? So he's always like railing against illegal immigrants and these kind of things. Yeah, and apparently his like followers or supporters don't see that. So yeah, not at all, not at all. I have to say I don't know anyone from the Vietnamese community myself, so I don't really get to talk to them that often. But yeah, they are like it's almost unbelievable. They have like no defining cultural feature or anything associated with them that wouldn't be just found in the like in the general society. Really
now,
strange.
when you say, I'm fascinated about something that you said. You said that a lot of the country is racist. Now, when you say racist, what does that mean and to what extent? So, let's say I'm in Czechoslovakia and I'm meeting you at the airport because now I'm scared to be here. I am half Chinese and I'm half Puerto Rican, so I appear I'm brown, right? I appear kind of Filipino a little bit, maybe Hawaiian to some. But what do you mean by racist? Do you mean like no one's going to talk to me, or do you think like they're going to be rude to me, or am I going to get stuff thrown at me, or like
no, nothing like that. I mean, you would be fine just by the virtue of being an American, because
Is it obvious? If I came out and I'm just like oh, he's an American, fuck it.
Yeah, that's a good question though. I mean, but like one of the ways how racism like manifests here is like we have a relatively sizable Roma population. I don't know if you know like who these people are. It's a really interesting story. They originate in India actually, and apparently at some point they were like during the Middle Ages, they were in the lowest kind of tiers of their society. So I don't really know how that happened, but at some point they just decided to leave the country and they started like wandering around Asia, and they formed this like nation called Roma, and eventually they migrated to Europe. So now there's a bunch of like especially Eastern European countries that have a Roma population. So and they look like Hindu, right? Although they are Christians, they're actually more religious than the general population, and because of like historical reasons like racism and discrimination and these kind of things, they now live in communities that have the same kind of problems that Native Americans have in the US, right? So again, like very impoverished, like low levels of education, drug abuse, and these kind of things. And people are usually like, when people are racist here, they are racist against them because they see them as like welfare queens, basically. Because, like,
now, when you say racist against them or discriminatory, what does that entail? Does that mean like if you walk into a restaurant, you won't get served or you'll get kicked out?
No, nothing like that. Nothing like that.
Oh, okay.
It's just like it's verbal, right? I mean, if anything, like if there's an action taken against someone on the basis of racism, I would say almost always it's actually the Roma people being like violent against against like white people, I guess, right? Because I mean it goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
And also like crime rate is much higher in these kind of communities. So it's like just verbal. Yeah, I mean it's associated with negative stereotypes. So they would say, oh, these people don't work because they come from a culture where you just like steal stuff and you don't really like
Like they're
place
gypsies.
value. Yeah, place value in education and these kind of things, right? And it creates this vicious circle where if there's racism against you, you're less likely to get a job because an employer wouldn't really give you a position because they would be afraid that you might steal or you wouldn't work and
Right.
these kind of things, which that's it gets perpetuated in society. And recently, like people have been really racist against like immigrants from the Middle East. But it's funny because we have like 0 of them, right? Like last year and the year before that, there was about 1 million people that came from Europe, from this region, but like nobody, like literally nobody came here. There's like 5 immigrants that we have in the country, but still people are just losing their shit. They're like really acting as if there was like thousands of immigrants just across the border waiting to get here and rape us and stuff like that.
If you only have like 10 Middle Eastern guys like in your country and something goes down, it's got to be one of those 10, right? Doesn't leave a large window. But it's fascinating. You said about the Roma people and the way that they're viewed and that they're treated and the backlash they give. It sounds like there's some parallels between that and how the Mexican population here is in America, especially in California, where they're viewed as like when you're an American, whether you're Caucasian or whatever or not. A lot of times you view there's many different types of the Mexicans, right? There's many different kinds, right? Variations, right? Like Puerto Ricans are a great example because there are Puerto Ricans that look like African Americans, right? And then there are other Puerto Ricans that have more of the Spanish blood, like from Spain, and are blonde. So Mexicans also come in a variety of colors and that kind of thing is what I was getting at. And if you look like you're darker skinned or you look a certain way, they figure you're illegal. Or if you don't speak the language as well, you're don't have a good education, or you're dumb, or you're here to steal, or much like Trump said, you come over and you're rapists, and it just seemed like there's a lot. I don't know. It just seemed like there was a bit of a parallel there between.
Well, the biggest difference would be though that Mexicans usually, I mean, at least that's the stereotype. They come to the US to work, right? So that you wouldn't have the stereotype necessarily that they don't work, because they actually are in the country to do that. While the biggest stereotype is that these Roma people don't work because they're just like riding the welfare system, right?
Right.
There's
a bit of that too. Most of that stuff, that no job stuff, most of that stereotype gets thrusted upon African Americans.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we here in America spread out our racism amongst multiples.
Well, also like you have barely any social like welfare state, right? While we have quite a generous one, probably even more than most Western European countries. Like if you, for example, compare the public health care here and the UK. Like there are people like coming here to go to a dentist or to go to like to have a surgery or something like that, because like everything's free. Like I've never paid. I will probably never pay, even when I'm old, assuming that the system stays the same for anything.
Is where you're at? Is it considered socialist?
Well, it depends. What I mean, it would definitely be considered socialist by
in America, by American standards. Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people I don't understand. So when I talk about Sweden and that kind of thing, and and you can tell me if I'm wrong because I don't know. But what I get told is, well, you get all this stuff for free, but when you get paid, you get like 40% of the pay because you're taxed out the ass to go to all this free stuff. I don't know if that's how much truth there is into that.
Yeah, I mean, my income tax is like 25%, so that's my that's what goes for like out of my salary to fund the social system. Then on top of that, obviously, I pay like the value-added tax on goods. So I don't know like how that compares to everyone else, like the rest of the world. I guess we have like higher probably taxation than that. Oh, I don't know, like France,
Yeah,
for example,
but you
taxes
guys
people quite a lot.
aren't also spending billions and billions of dollars on on military
Yeah. Well,
stuff
you have
and
like Bali. I think I mean I think if you like defund military substantially, you could really afford to have a very good like welfare state, right? I mean, welfare state is one thing. Like for example, education is completely free here. I never paid anything for education, even my PhD. Actually, when I was a PhD student, I was given like a salary, right, to be like a student full time, because that's really important. And I've got some friends from the US, and when they came over and they were explained this, they were like,
yeah,
why isn't everyone a PhD student? Like they're
right.
giving you free money to go to school, right? Uh,
You know, it's funny. And it's kind of sad that I have to say this, but anything remotely like that mentioned in America is, you're just a socialist. They just write it off.
well, in
They
that case, being a socialist is awesome.
No, I agree. That's why I want to retire over there. Anything that's perceived as like for example, what you'll get in response to that is, well, if you really want a PhD here in America, you have to work hard. Nothing's given to you. That's the attitude they'll have. They'll say, well, we're not going to just give education to a bunch of people that aren't going to work for it. Oh, get a job, get two jobs, pay for the school. That's why most people don't finish college. That's why I didn't finish college. I couldn't afford it. And so
Yeah, I
just
mean, I would say it's probably better to give a PhD to people for free, because they will actually pay it back because they will have much higher salary, right? So I mean,
right.
like in terms of it, like if you only look at it as an investment, like from this like purely economic standpoint, the state kind of paying for my university education, it was a great investment, because now I will just like pay it back in a couple of years in taxation, and I will pay like much higher taxes just throughout my life, right? So it's a good investment. Like free education works as a policy, I guess.
You know,
Also, we also have a very good public transport, but that's because the country is small and
mhm,
the population is distributed very evenly. Like here, you have a village every like 3 miles, right? Like the
mm,
population density is high, and literally like I think the average distance between like individual settlements is like 10 kilometers or something, or maybe even less, right? So you need a very good public system to kind of move people around. So that's
you're
very
like
good.
you're like, I just got the internet last year.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's fascinating, man. I really want to be in that environment.
I don't want to like paint it all in such a good colors, right? I mean, I'm sure there are things that are shit, but
Right.
I mean, I've obviously just by watching the great debate community, and also I watched the U.S. politics just by the virtue of being like a political science student. I mean, when I really think about it, it's very difficult for me to come up with something where the US is like clearly better, except science and the military. Those are because even like a general educational system is
Mhm.
shit, to be honest. And when I look at anything else, like I would, for example, never like move to live in the US, even if I was offered a very good position,
Mhm.
just because if you think about the practicalities of like your everyday life, especially healthcare and like education for your kids, it's just shit. Or you have to pay for everything.
Yeah, I've had people where I used to live. I used to live in a pretty well-off area,
Hmm.
money wise, and there was quite a few people from Europe, a lot of people from Germany, or stuff like that. And I would go, why would you leave Europe? Right? I don't know where they lived, but
Mm.
they said they were from Germany, but in various parts of Europe. Why would you leave to come here? To and they just go, well, look around you. There's palm trees. You know, the beach is a couple miles that way. It's like paradise here. And I'm like, yeah, but do you know what you're giving up?
Yeah,
I mean, I get it. There's palm trees, but I mean,
well, I mean, there are palm trees in like Italy, right?
right? Yeah, I know it's not that exclusive, guys. You know,
Yeah.
but they see it. They see it in movies and stuff, and I guess I don't know.
Yeah,
I can tell you,
another thing is, I mean, I've been in the US and in Canada a couple of times, right? And what I notice, it's more like a feeling, like the rich and the poor just live like they are much more separated in the US, right? You have like very poor neighborhoods and very like rich neighborhoods, while here it's very like equalized, and I really like that because I think it's very important in society to for like people like of various classes to kind of meet in the public space, because it's like helps the social cohesion, right? I mean, if you look everyone up either in gated communities or in ghettos, people will just like eventually stop being interested in what's going on in the other side, right?
right.
Um,
And that's kind of what I was getting at. That egocentric nature, it gets smaller and smaller, right? And then you get down to like your neighborhoods, you know, and that's how Americans are. They're very separated, and that's a very good point. We've been going an hour and a half, so I'm gonna close it up, Kamil.
all right.
Because I'm getting hungry. I'm so hungry.
Well, me too. Actually, I need to get some breakfast.
Yeah. I would not be opposed to discussing more stuff that are different about our respective countries.
Okay. Yeah.
This was a very, very enlightening sort of hangout, and I'm glad that you do watch our stuff. I don't, you know, we do it more as a hobby, you know, kind of thing. You know, every couple of weeks or whatever. Me, Run Gavin, I run, and Turtle 2080. And it's a lot of fun. I just have one more question. I'm always curious about. How come you're never on camera?
Because my camera doesn't work. That's the only reason. I mean, it's not difficult to Google me out. I've got like some public lectures and these kind of things out on YouTube. And
do you really? Is this?
Yeah.
I don't know if Kamil was your real name. Is that how you pronounce it? Kamil?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kamil. Yeah, Americans usually pronounce it as Kamil.
I said it right.
Yeah, you did. You did very well.
USA. So, okay, Kamil, I'm going to go. I thank you very much for stopping by. Again, if you ever want to do another hangout, I'll be more than happy to. You're a good dude.
Next time you do a Westworld episode on Heretical Weekends, I hope
that's
to make
right.
Sure
That's right. You're a Westworld guy too. I forgot about that.
Yeah. I just watched the last episode last night with my wife because we are both into it. It's so good. Now we have to wait probably for like a year to get another season, but
2018.
You need to do Black Mirror. I know everyone says that. Yeah.
I started. I saw the first episode and I think half of the second one.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get a chance to watch because then I started watching Westworld and I was like, damn. Yeah. And then like I got hooked on that. So I'll definitely check it out. Again, thank you. Go enjoy your day. I have to get to bed anyway because I got to wake up at like probably about around the time you wake up to go to work. So.
Oh, okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.